And for an assessment of the Arab Spring and its different outcomes in both Tunisia and Egypt, I'm joined by Bockenfeld. He's the Advocacy Director at the Project on Middle East Democracy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's start with Tunisia. And what is your assessment on how the country has progressed so far? You know, it's been 3 years since the uprisings began. And as we just heard from that piece, they're looking ahead to new elections and a new constitution.
Well, what's remarkable about Tunisia is that it faces real challenges of polarization in the politics and also real economic and security struggles. But amidst all those challenges, there's been a constant pressure back toward negotiation, back toward seeking consensus and a way forward. And Tunisia is really marking out, just as it did in the beginning, a very unique course for the region and finding new solutions and new ways to move the country forward.
Can the region look to Tunisia and how it's evolving? I mean, obviously, you really can't compare countries. You can't compare Egypt to Tunisia. What do you make of what's currently taking place? Let's go to Egypt and how that is evolving.
Well, Egypt is a bitterly divided country right now, and I think that the division there is a little bit different than we see in other places. But the important thing that I think is unique about Egypt is that you're seeing very much a return to the same sort of repressive policies and repressive practices of the past. And I think what a lot of people in the community are worried about is sort of a return to these Mubarak-era repressive tactics, where it's a very much reestablished police state, no voice for the opposition, no freedom of expression, and so on, and that fears of instability and insecurity are driving the process down the only road that's available, and that's that of the generals.
But there's this new roadmap, as we just heard, you know, with the constitutional referendum and then the parliamentary elections and then a presidential election. Are you pessimistic then about the process that they've laid forth?
Well, I think it'll be very difficult for those electoral events to be meaningful without sort of an improved political environment around them. It's very difficult for the ruling regime or this government or the next government to claim legitimacy when they're lacking a popular mandate and buy-in from all segments of society. They do have a lot of support right now, but they have very significant minorities that feel almost completely isolated from the process. Unless they can find a way to bring them in, it'll be difficult to solidify that.
With the protests that are still happening and the violence that is still taking place, is that something that you anticipate we'll see as we go through these other elections, so to speak?
Well, it depends how inclusive those processes are. I mean, we saw just before, just at the end of the year, the Muslim Brotherhood was declared a terrorist organization. If the Brotherhood and those that sympathize or work with them are not allowed to participate in those elections, then I think it's very possible that we'll see increased levels of violence and radicalism for those people that simply see no other way to affect change in a peaceful way.
And Cole, is there any role for the international community to play at this point in regards to what's happening in Egypt?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's absolutely essential what the international community has to say about the constitutional referendum and the roadmap forward. I think in Egypt there's a very strong anti-Americanism, but at the same time there's a real hunger for validation, and that validation can very much come from the international community. And so I think it's important that the U.S. and other governments speak very straightforwardly and very candidly about how they assess the situation, where improvements need to be made before they give that kind of stamp of approval.
All right, Cole Bockenfeld, a lot to look forward to. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show.
Thank you very much.